You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, we are part of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure you're going on and subscribing to get all of the great shows on here, including ours. As always, tonight, it's me here, Pat Lane, with my man, Matt St. Jean. And tonight, we have one of our favorite internet scouts on. It is at ScoutDNFL on X, #/Twitter. It's Daniel Rotman. Daniel, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be on.
Yeah.
I remember last year you were high on Drake May, and I feel like that was what brought you into the stratosphere of Patriots Twitter.
Yeah. It seems like that was probably my claim to fame. Ironically enough, definitely my number one player just happened to be drafted to my team. So pretty surreal feeling. Doesn't look like we're going to get that this year with Travis Hunter, but we'll manage.
It's unfortunate. Because it would have been if stupid Joe Milton. Actually, I can't even. It's not even Joe Milton's fault. It's the stupid Bills who intentionally lost, and good on the Bills because that's exactly what the Patriots would have done if they were in that situation. But kind of sucks that's the way the season ended. But what are you gonna do? But here we are at 4 instead. Number 4 instead, and so the question then becomes, what do we do at 4? Okay, so Daniel. Let's assume that Abdul Carter is not there, that Cam Ward goes number 1, which we know is going to happen, which Travis Hunter goes number 2, which, again, we assume is going to happen. And I can say we know is going to happen because their GM compared him to Shohei Ohtani. If you compare him to Ohtani and then don't draft him, you should be fired immediately. So you would assume that he's the pick at 2. And I would imagine the Giants aren't dumb enough to pass on Abdul Carter and are going to either take Abdul Carter or trade with someone that will take Abdul Carter at 3. And so let's assume that Carter is gone and those 2 guys are both gone. What are you doing if you were in the seat, right? They pull Mike Vrabel out or, Wolf out or who the hell is the guy they brought in this year with
Cowden?
Ryan Cowden. They pull Cowden out and they stick Daniel Rotman in. Who are you taking at number 4?
Yeah, I mean, look, I obviously do a lot of mock drafts on Twitter, and the distinction I like to make is when I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home, I can get to kind of predict where the board is going, and I can continue to redo it so that the player I want falls to me, right? And I can trade up to the places I want to trade up, and so I can kind of manipulate the board how I want. And when I do it like that, it usually comes away with a draft that goes something like Jalen Walker or Mason Graham at 4, and then I trade up for Josh Simmons and take a guy like Jalen Noel at 69. But, the kind of reality of the draft is you don't know what's going to happen next, right? You don't know if that guy and Josh Simmons is going to be there. You don't know if your offensive tackle pick's going to be there at 38. So you can't really do it in contingencies and hope. You got to draft for the immediate and, take it like that. So, it's not the sexy answer, but I probably at this point am leaning offensive line. And I do have Membu ranked 1 spot higher on my big board. But I think in terms of the Patriots specific needs, I'm probably caving in and I'm probably going Campbell if I'm being honest.
Very interesting, because this has been the discussion in all of Patriots Twitter for the past 3 weeks now, and Arif Hassan's big board, which is kind of the gold standard here, came out this week. Will Campbell at 5, Armand Membu at 6. So that's not. I mean, it's a clear offensive lineman 1, offensive lineman 2, but that's not really that much of a distinction. I think you can go either way on this. I lean Membu. I think Pat leans Will Campbell here. You're clearly also on the fence. So what is it that makes you say Campbell, even though you have Membu rated higher?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of just the situation that the Patriots are in. I think when I look at it in a vacuum, Membu's my high-rated tackle because I trust him more at his right tackle spot. Like if I'm speaking honestly, I think there's a better chance that Membu succeeds at right tackle than Will Campbell does at left, right? But if you look at what the Patriots are doing right now, you just signed Morgan Moses at right tackle, and you don't have a left tackle. So let's say you draft Membu. I would say that drafting Membu and expecting him to play tackle is probably equally, if not a bigger risk than the Campbell arm length conversation. So I think then you look to the contingency and it's like, what's your plan if he can't play left tackle? Are you moving him into guard year one? Are you benching Morgan Moses? Like, it just feels very counterproductive for a team that, really needs to kind of get going this year. And obviously I don't want to like kind of shorten our window and pick for the short term, but I do think the Campbell hate is overblown a bit. I think for me, he's always been a top 7, 8, 9 player. Is he worth it at 4 in a typical draft that has more talent? Probably not. But I would say that this draft out of any in recent years is a little bit deficient with talent. And I think when you couple that with what he brings from a leadership standpoint and kind of being a potential torchbearer for Mike Vrabel's program and coming in every single day and setting the tone, it's like, yeah, he might not end up as a Hall of Fame Pro Bowl tackle, but I think for sure he can be an above average tackle. And I think for New England in this type of draft, that's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the Morgan Moses right tackle thing to me. So this is actually one of the things that was appealing about Membu, because I like the idea of taking him, and because you have your right tackle, you've afforded yourself 1 or 2 full seasons to work on Membu on the left side and try to develop him and make it work. If it doesn't, then Morgan Moses is at the end of his career, and at any point you can say, all right, we're just going to put the young guy in on the right side if it's not working on the left. But then there's the whole Will Campbell. Left guard is still a position of need for this team, to at least some degree. So there's the value conversation of how valuable are they at their next position. The second position Membu is going to be at right tackle. The second position Will Campbell is going to be at is left guard. Left guard's less valuable, but I also think Campbell probably has higher odds of succeeding at left guard than Membu does at right tackle in this context, because if Membu's at right tackle, he already failed at left tackle. Mm-hmm. But it's very, it's very close.
Yeah, I think, and here's what I kind of land on is the fact that I don't think you have to take an offensive tackle at 4, but I think if Carter isn't on the board, it's really the only position that makes sense. You're in a situation right now where your offensive line is a disaster and has been a disaster for a multiple seasons. We're not talking like 1 or 2 seasons. We're talking like 4 or 5 seasons. You haven't been able to figure it out on the offensive line. And so you have to get some stability there. And so ultimately, if the guys that are in the war room think like Matt and want to draft Armand Membu, I'm okay with it. I have Campbell ahead of him, but ultimately it's really close. And so it's going to come down to personal preference. And if the personal preference is Membu, fine. I'm okay with that. If the personal preference is Campbell, then that's fine as well. I think that guy has to be a tackle. I know that Murph is in the chat yelling about Kelvin Banks. That's his guy. But it's an interesting question here with Jonah, and I think we'll pose it. And we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I want your opinion on it. If Carter is there at 4, do you consider trading back and taking an offensive tackle anyways? So say Carter's there at 4 and somebody like the Raiders at 6, or who's at 7? I'm trying to think who's at.
It's the Jets and the Raiders.
The Jets
are at 6 and 7. Yeah.
Okay, so the Jets are okay. So let's say maybe not trading with the Jets, but nevertheless, right? Whether you go to 6 or 8 or even 9 with the Saints, I'm sorry. Do you move back and then try to take your offensive tackle at that point? Again, whether it's Membu or Campbell, you're moving back to 6 or 7 or 8, assuming that one of those 2 guys is going to be available, and then picking up draft capital. Or do you just stand on the board and take Abdul Carter?
Yeah. For me, I think if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, for that matter, any of those top 2 guys are available at 4, I think if you move back, you're just creating yourself a problem. Like, I think we're in a problem now where the whole fan base and probably the franchise internally is a little bit divided on who they should pick it for. And I think you're recreating that problem just to add an asset. So I think if Carter's there, you take him no matter what, unless you're getting like an absolutely generational package that can completely revamp your team. I just think he's good enough to the point where there's really nothing worth passing on him. Like, I genuinely believe that he has potential defensive player of the year upside, and I think he's too good to pass up there.
Yeah, he's a great player. We love him as a prospect. Another guy you have on here in your little flow chart of potential guys that they could take at 4. Another pass rusher is Jalen Walker. You have Mason Graham in this tier too. We've talked a lot about him. We love Graham. Walker, I think, is a little bit more of an interesting prospect. He's 11th by consensus, but someone who's been tied to the Patriots, I feel like, for a while. I like him a lot as a player. I think he's like probably the first guy who I wouldn't consider it for. So what throws him into that conversation for you?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll preface it again by saying, like, this isn't a normal draft. Like, in most years, as much as I love Jalen Walker, he's probably not worth it at 4 in most years. But given the circumstance, he's kind of entered that conversation for me. So I kind of look back to the discourse on Micah Parsons, and I'm not drawing that comparison. They're different players. Micah Parsons is a significantly better athlete, and they're different style of players in a sense. But I think a lot of the discourse was the same, where it was, this guy started out as a linebacker. He slowly started to play a little bit of edge. You didn't necessarily see enough of him at edge to fully just believe, based on the product, that he was going to be able to stick there full time. So you had a lot of people on the fence saying, well, what position is he? Can we draft a linebacker this high? And I think when you just have a guy that's that gifted, it's going to work out. So to me, I don't look at it as, oh, this is how I compare him at edge to these edge guys who have been playing that position their whole life. I look at it as, this is a linebacker who just started learning the position. He's 21 years old. He has some of the reported best work ethic and leadership out there. And he's already playing the edge position at this level. He's already playing good enough where you're putting him in that first round conversation. So it's like, I've seen enough personally on tape. I've seen the flashes enough. And I believe enough in the person and the work ethic and what he's put on tape that when he's 23 years old and he gets into that coaching program with Mike Vrabel, what's he going to look like, right? So again, I understand the argument. I don't think in most years he's worth it at 4, but I do think he's going to be a really damn good football player. And I think regardless of where he goes, he's going to be a good player for someone.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly well said by you. And I don't know how high people are on him. I know it's the problem is the volatility with the pick, right? Is that you don't know exactly what you're going to get, and people want a sure thing, right? Especially at number 4. The problem is that you don't have a sure thing with anyone, right? If you draft Will Campbell, you're worried about his arm length. If you draft Armand Member, you're worried about him flipping over to the left side instead of the right side. If you draft, Mason Graham, you're saying we just spent a ton of money on D tackle, and he has frame issues as well, and so it's one of those like issues where it's like, yeah, okay, Jalen Walker has some concerns, but he also could be like the next great edge rusher, and he's 21 years old. And so there's a chance that if you can get that guy at 4 and you believe in him, that it makes a ton of sense to do it. I don't know if they will do it or not, but I think there's a good argument for it, at least.
For sure.
In terms of usage, my comp for him has actually been Dante Hightower. I'd want him used off the ball primarily, and then you pick your spots as a blitzer, or like I would love him as someone who's adding into the rush, someone who's going to be your 5th or 6th guy, someone you're going to walk down on the edge situationally. I think that's how I'd want to do it, because I worry about the frame on the edge. It's a little small for that, and like you said, like I just don't. He's not quite twitched up enough as an athlete where I can buy into him being there full time. If I could, I'd say he's the pick. I'd love that.
Yeah, and that's a fair concern. My comp for him actually was Jamie Collins, and I've kind of just like put him in that category of like traditional Patriots, Belichick, Super Bowl winning defenders. But yeah, I think even if you're playing like a Zach Bond type role where you're an occasional pass rusher, like look what he did for Philadelphia this year in those hybrid defenders. So I think a lot of people get scared by these prospects who don't necessarily have a guaranteed position. But to me, it's like, if you don't have a coaching staff that can properly utilize a player with this much talent and versatility, then you have the wrong coaching staff. It's like these types of players in different positions across the board, they come every single year and it's the same discourse. Guys like Cooper DeJean, where you're like, oh, well, I don't know if he can be a true boundary corner. Is he more of a safety? Is he more of a nickel? Brian Branch, same thing. Kyle Hamilton, like a bunch of safeties in that. in that regard. Micah Parsons, like all these different examples of hybrid defenders. And it just goes back to it. It's like, if you can't make it work with the guys who are this talented, you have the wrong people there. And obviously that's not like a completely blind view. There are guys who don't work out in the same sense, like Isaiah Simmons and all that. So I think it's important to kind of have a vision for them, understand what their personality is like, how much work are they going to put in to get to the level you need them to be at, and how much drive do they have to be that do-it-all guy.
Yeah. It's a great point. It's a great point. And I think no, go ahead, Matt.
It's just funny you mentioned those two guys. If we want to switch gears into the second round here, I was looking back at some of Arif's old consensus boards because I was kind of curious. Pat's picking at 38. Is there a chance someone we like is going to fall to us? So I just sorted by any player who's been a top 25 player by consensus who is still on the board at pick 38. The last two guys who were there, it's Cooper DeJean, it's Brian Branch, and you got Andrew Booth, and then Nakobe Dean. So another guy in that mold of, he's a little bit more in the Jalen. I mean, not that he was an edge guy, but undersized linebacker type. And then the next guy after that's Christian Barmore. Yeah. And there's been at least one of these guys in every draft going back to 2015, which is when I think his data goes back to. So I was looking at your flow chart, and you have some trade up guys in there who I think could definitely be just on the board at 38. Mike Green is an interesting name there. Is a lot of the guys who fell for character reasons. Yeah, would fit there. Colston Loveland is one of these guys too, who I don't know. I can't get a read on what the NFL think. Like, if he was the first tight end off the board, it wouldn't surprise me if he was there at 38. I don't know if that would surprise me.
Right.
Golden and Ibuka as receivers, Walter Nolan and Derek Harmon as defensive tackles. These are trade up guys, but I think there's a real chance at least one of these guys is on the board when they pick at 38. Same with Josh Simmons with his knee injury history.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, every single year, you kind of, everyone builds a consensus and they kind of start to think of it too much, a little bit of gospel. But oftentimes the draft doesn't go the way that you expect it to. And there's guys who you expected to be gone in the 20s who are now sitting there at 38. And I think, Ladd McConkey was pushing that boundary last year, where I think a lot of us expected him to potentially be gone. Obviously, we know how that one went. But yeah, like, that's a great point. Like, there are guys that are potentially going to slip to 38 that could make this draft a lot better for us.
I'd add Shamar Stewart to that list too, because an absolute freak athlete, but a guy that has 4.5 career sacks, like, just never could get it done on the field. With like 39 pressures last year and a sack and a half. So, like, the tools are there, but can he actually do it? Right? Can he, like, take the gifts that he has and the skills that he has and use it to make an impact on the defense on the field during a game? And I think he'll go earlier than that, but I also, a guy that can't figure out on the field, like, maybe people don't trust him, and who knows? So we'll see. But that's another name for me.
For sure.
Do you have, if they're going, it really feels like it's going to be Will Campbell at 4. So if we work off of that, who do you want at like, are you targeting receiver or pass catcher here first? Is that kind of where you're leaning?
I think that's probably where I'm leaning. Like, I'm probably trying to get aggressive. I think I posted today 3 options that I would want to move up for. Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Colston Loveland, that range of pass catchers, where I really feel like those guys are good enough where they could genuinely be that number one go-to guy in New England for years to come. Obviously, different flavor on all of them, different players. But those are kind of the 3 guys that I've identified where that's a home run. Like, I'm moving up into that 21, 24 range, and I'm making my move and I'm going and getting them.
I think it's a great point. And they have the firepower. They have the ammunition this year. Last year, we all know that they had the deal in place with the Bills to move up to 28. The Bills decided not to move all the way back to 34 and only go back to 32 with the Chiefs. And they got their guy. It was the right move by the Bills. Right now, they got exposed by Worthy in the AFC Championship game, which sucks for them. But they got the guy they wanted ultimately, right? And I think that there's a question of whether they would have gotten that guy at 34. If the Patriots had come in and drafted Leggett at 28, which is what I think they were going to do. And so that's kind of a fascinating look at it. But this year, they have that extra 3rd round pick. Yeah. So to take 28 and package 77 or even 69 and move back into the 1st round, I think makes a ton more sense. And I think teams are going to be willing to do it. We'll see, but I do think that teams are going to be willing to do that, and to pick up an extra top 100 pick or top 70 pick, I think really makes a difference.
I agree. I think also, like, if you try to predict the board, obviously it's very hard. I would say that Golden and Loveland will probably be gone by that range, but I think Ibuka is like a very, very realistic target on both sides. Like, I think he's going to get into that 25 range. He could even get past that. And I think he's also a guy that everyone in that building would like. Like, that's a character guy. He's been around a big program. He's produced among some of the best guys. Everyone raves about his leadership. I think from an offensive scheme standpoint, that's just a pure route runner who comes into Josh McDaniels' system and thrives. So that's definitely a name that I think is realistic for us to trade up to, and a guy that could be kind of the go-to guy in New England for years.
Now, one name that's not on here is Luther Burden. We had Matt Waldman come on the show recently. He has Luther Burden as his overall number one wide receiver. He has him above Travis Hunter. Now, he says kind of flavors there of what you want at receiver. It's kind of 1A, 1B, but he loves him. So is Luther Burden not on your list here because you think he's going to be gone and you're not going to be able to get him in a trade, or are you just not that interested in moving up for him?
Yeah, I think Luther Burden's kind of like the next step below for me. Like, he's in that range where if he's at 38, I'm probably taking him. I like Luther Burden a lot. Like, I enjoyed his film. Very, very dynamic player, incredible after the catch, physical, and kind of just has that alpha mentality. The only thing for me with Burden versus these guys is, and this is something that could very well change at the next level. And maybe, a lot of guys, it's like, we don't know what they were asked to do, so we shouldn't really box them into that. But I just look at the other guys, and for me with the Patriots, it's like, I want a guy who's going to constantly create for himself. Luther Burden might be a guy who goes to the 49ers and becomes the best weapon in the league because of the way he's utilized and what he can do after the catch and get the ball in his hands and let him run. But I think for the Patriots and just what they've been missing for a lot of years is, I tweeted about this yesterday, and it was kind of like a basketball analogy. It's, can you get a bucket in the fourth quarter? When it's 3rd and 7 and you can't be schemed up and the attention is on you and you have that man coverage, are you going to be able to win on 3rd and 7 and pick up that first down? And I'm not saying that Luther Burden can't do that. I just trust those other guys a little bit more than I do Burden. And so that's kind of why they're in the range of, I would go up and get them. But yeah, I think if he's there at 38, which is definitely a possibility, I think that's a really good pick. And he would probably be the most dynamic receiver the Patriots have had in a while.
Now, in terms of pass catchers, other guys at 38 who I think people really like, Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. There's a lot of fans. And then someone who I personally like a lot, who I like the connection with Vrabel to through his father, is Mason Taylor. And I've been on the pod, been talking a lot about wanting a tight end to develop because May likes throwing the ball to him. So get him someone he can trust. Where are those guys for you at pick 38?
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking my language. Those are two of my favorite guys. So Jaden Higgins, someone that I've really, really liked this whole process. Like, got to see him down at the Senior Bowl up close. Just a huge, physical, really fast guy. I think there's a lot of similar receiver prototypes in this draft. Like, you look at a guy like Ted McMillan and Trey Harris and Higgins, and they're all kind of in this bunch. But I would say from an athletic standpoint, Higgins is definitely the most athletic out of those. Like, in terms of just the testing, the 40-yard dash, the twitch, the way he moves. Like, I genuinely think he's a rare player who can actually create for himself at that size. Great hands, very reliable. Everything really checks out with him, production-wise as well. So he's someone that I think Elliott Wolf would actually like a lot too, just kind of looking at the history of where he's drafted, but also kind of appeasing Josh McDaniels in the sense that this is still a guy who can run the route tree and create for himself. So I honestly think that is probably the most realistic option at 38, and it's something I'm fine with. I think he's a good player. Do I think he's going to be the most dominant number one in the league? Maybe not, but I think he's going to be a very high-end guy who can continuously produce for you. And similar sentiment on Mason Taylor. It's just a pro's pro. He does everything well. Just one of those well-rounded guys where you don't have many questions about him. I just remember vividly watching with the Senior Bowl, and there was one clip where I had on my phone, and it was like I put it to full volume. You can really hear the smack of his hands when he catches the ball. Like, this is a guy who's going to pluck the ball out of the air. And, obviously, father in the NFL, he knows what it takes to be around. So, yeah, I think if he's there at 69, that's definitely a pick that I'd pull the trigger on.
You said 69 for Taylor.
For Taylor, yeah.
You wouldn't do that at 38?
38, I think, is a little too rich for me. I think on
Okay.
my big board, I have maybe like 44, 45. So a little below there, but I don't know. I'd hope someone a little more desirable slips to 38. But.
So, all right, let's say
by consensus for that note.
Oh, so there you go. So let's say, Daniel, that pick 4 is Mason is Will Campbell. Pick 38 is Jaden Higgins, let's say. Patriots don't trade up. Now you're at pick 69. Where are you going? What are you doing? And we're not going to go all the way through because this is, but I think, we could stop here at 69 nice and see, what would you do at that spot? Assuming you got your left tackle and the guy that you think is going to be the wide receiver 1, now where do you go?
Yeah, I would say probably, at that position, like once you've gotten your offensive tackle and your receiver, you can kind of go best player available. But if we're just talking specific routes, I would probably zero in on potentially doubling down on the offensive line. I think a guy like Tate Ratledge, who could plug in at guard and, sit there for 10 years, he's a phenomenal player, great tape, great athlete, really experienced in a big name program. So that's someone that I would love at 69. Also just adding to the defensive line, like any of those, it's a very, very deep defensive line class. So I think you want to capitalize on that. Any of those guys in the mid range, like an Alfred Collins, a TJ Sanders, just another guy to pair in there with Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, I think would go a long way. But yeah, I think at that point, if you address offensive tackle and wide receiver, you're pretty much free to go best player available at that 69.
I like it. As people can see, I'm playing an away game tonight, as you might be able to see behind me. The city of Philadelphia actually is behind me right now, and I think adding to the defensive line, we've shown the dividends that it can pay. And obviously they win the Super Bowl last year, but they've been competitive for multiple years because of that. And so, not that you're doing it the same way Philadelphia has done it, but you need depth, and so draft an extra guy on the defensive line and go from there.
Now, would you rather end up with a scenario where you're taking another name to throw out here at 38, Nick Scorton? Let's say you like him, you take him there, and Jalen Noel at 69, or Jaden Higgins at 38, and one of these other defensive linemen later in the draft.
Yeah, if the receiver at 69 is Noel, I'm probably going that route just because, that's one of my favorite players. But I do think the options that you could potentially get at that third pick, or maybe a small trade up from 69 into the early 60s, like the receiver options there are really good. Like, I think there's a lot of players in the back half of the top 10 receivers in this draft, like Jalen Noel, Jack Besh, Kyle Williams, Trey Harris. Like, I feel like it's safe to say that one of those guys potentially falls to 69. I don't think you're going to get your pick at them, but I think one of them is probably going to be there. So yeah, I love any of those guys.
I love it. All right, let's get into our first ad break, and we're going to talk about my mock draft, which dropped today on Pat's Pulpit, and I think that is a great big market tease to my mock draft. So let's get into our ad read, and then we'll get into my mock draft. All right, this ad read, of course, is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It used to be 1,000. It's 2,000. Come on. Cash in the basketball playoffs with Prize Picks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Now, again, one of my favorite parts about this is that you can mix and match lineups. So you want to take your playoff basketball lineups and match it up with your playoff hockey lineups and match it up with your basketball, with your baseball lineups. Awesome. That's great. So that's my favorite thing to do. And again, it's super quick and easy. They have Venmo, they have MasterCard, they have Apple Pay. They have a lot of different ways to get money in and out super quick. All right. What you're going to do. Okay. Oh, one thing. Tomorrow's Tuesday. If you're listening to this in podcast form, today is Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. All right. Taco Tuesday. They drop the amounts for almost every player on the board. So you got to get in on the action on that. On Fridays is Flex Friday. You got to opt in on Flex Friday, and you got to tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for it. But then if you hit it, obviously you hit it. If you don't, you get that money back. And so what's better than that? Okay. As promotional money, but you still get it back. All right. So what you're going to do is download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and you're going to get $50 instantly. We play a first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Okay. So I mentioned my final mock draft, my mock draft 6.0, my seventh round mock draft came out this week. Today, I should say, on Prize Picks. Jesus Christ, dude, I'm all over the place on Pat's pulpit. And what I've done, and Daniel, I said this to you already, and a lot of the listeners know this already, but I choose a different player every time. I never repeat the same guy ever, and so it kind of boxes you in a little bit, right? Because last year I drafted at number 3, this year I drafted at number 4, and I'm like, okay, do I traded back a bunch of times? I had all the guys drop to us and took them all there. But in this particular one, I went Armand Bembou at number 4. I think we've talked about that already. I don't think we really have to get into it too much, but that was the pick for me at 4, following kind of this same thing that we were just talking about, Daniel, where it's going for that tackle at 4 and then letting the board fall to you after that. And I think that was the thought process there. Again, it's going to be Will Campbell or Bembou, in my opinion. And so whoever you like is who you like, and you go with it.
The comments are absolutely killing you on it, Pat. By the way.
Yeah,
they hate it. The most recommended comment at the top of this article is, "I swear the author is trolling now," which is incredible.
If you make a mock draft that people like, you have done something. I don't even know if it's possible. I don't think it's possible. Every single mock draft I've ever made, people hate it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things you'll never get any consensus on anything.
Right.
The draft.
Yeah.
Someone will always hate what you're doing.
Yeah. I did see
it.
Honestly,
it was described somewhere as horoscopes for men. It's like that.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And I read it every day. So
100%. All right. Okay. Here's my guy at 38. I want your opinion on this, Matt. This is a guy we haven't even spoken about. Yeah. Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. A concerning hip injury last year, right? His 2023 tape is awesome. He just wiped out Marvin Harrison Jr. in their game in 2023. And so I'm a big fan of his. Now, the question is, can he play? Right? What does the hip look like? I think he heard it week 7, I think. And so, what does the hip look like moving forward? How much is he going to be able to make an impact this year and then moving forward? I'm not sure. And that's a serious question that we don't have an answer to, but I love the film on this guy. I love the man-to-man skills on him is so awesome. And I think throwing him in this defense would be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to say the least. I think, starting with the positives, with a guy with an injury like that, you always kind of want to look at where they're at in their career. And he's very young. I think he's still 21. So still very early. So a lot of development to be done. But I think that's a positive for anyone coming off of an injury, just to be at that stage of their career. But yeah, like you said, big physical corner, very good at the line of scrimmage, can jam guys. I would say that my biggest, not concern, but question mark for him is how fluid, how athletic is he really? I think for a guy going up against Marvin Harrison, that's kind of his ideal matchup, where it is a bigger type of receiver who doesn't necessarily have that extra gear, that juice. So I honestly think he'd be a great complement to Christian Gonzalez, because you kind of get that fluidity and speed from a guy like Gonzalez. And then perhaps the more physical, more Carlton Davis like player in Benjamin Morrison. Now, I won't lie, I don't think I would consider it at 38. But if he were there at 69 due to injury potentially, I would make that move.
Yeah, I was curious where he ended up in the rankings, because I remember at the start of draft season, he was a consensus, like kind of between the first and second round, someone who might go between 25 and 40. And, by consensus, he's dropped outside the top 40. In the Beast, they have him at 69th overall.
Yeah. So I have him at
really
60, I think, which
60 or 61.
It's interesting when you go through your board and you put it all together. It's like you get to these points and you're like, oh, I like this player. Like, how is he so low for me? It's just the depth at the position. Like, I think there's so many corners this year. A guy that I would kind of turn to in a similar capacity is Siobhan Revel Jr. from East Carolina. I would say similar in the sense that he's coming off an injury, so we didn't really get to see him throughout the process, which is a really helpful thing for guys. Like, the media always gets very hyped on the guys who are able to test and show off their skills. So when you have an injury like that, I think it puts you at a pretty big disadvantage in the media, at least. But he's the type of guy where if he tested, you're looking at one of the best athletic testers at the combine, like 4.3 speed, twitch, length. He's 6'3", like 200 plus. Revel. So I think he's my corner 6 and like 39th player. So just around that range. I feel like they probably won't go in that corner direction, but yeah, he's another option that could be in a similar umbrella.
It's a great point. Mock draft 2.0. Siobhan Revel went 38 for me. So
you couldn't do that one,
and that's it. You get to 6, and you're like, who am I gonna go? I like Morrison a lot. I think you're right. On the mock draft database, they still have him at 45, and so I was kind of pigeonholed.
He's 44 in Arif's too.
Yeah.
So you're a little lower than consensus on him, Daniel. I will say you mentioned Revel though. Going off top of just for 1 second, watching his tape and looking at where he was going to go in the draft and team fits. The team that stood out to me for him was Buffalo, team that really needs a man corner and someone like that. Like he's got a combination of size, speed, and kind of man coverage ability that you don't see.
Yeah.
Like questions about him, I think, is his own corner still. I think he's still learning. Run defender, he's a thin guy. He's not going to give you much there, but he's going to play on the outside anyway. He's going to be a cover corner. That's what you're asking him to do.
Yeah, I think you're kind of getting the similar like Quinyon Mitchell type profile there, just like a really long, fast, physical guy who didn't play necessarily at the biggest school, but has all the tools to succeed in the right system. So he's a guy I like a lot that I just think has kind of been disadvantaged from not being able to test and hasn't been talked about in that regard.
And then jump back over to Morrison for a second, because we made the Carlton Davis comparison to him. Like, I think the fit is obvious. I think Mike Vrabel would like him a lot, mentality wise.
Yeah.
I get it. 38, I think, is a bit rich for me. But as a general fit, like you said, if he's there at 69, I'm definitely on board with that, depending on who else is there, because corner is a long-term need.
And that's a sneaky
Davis
need for the Patriots, I think.
Well, like you got Gonzalez, but like Carlton Davis, I like the signing a lot. Guys that age can fall off a cliff literally any year, and we like Marcus Jones, but it doesn't seem like Mike Vrabel necessarily loves him. And after that, it's you got some guys that are interesting with upside, but no one that you're locked into.
Yeah, for sure. There are a couple corners like who I have ranked slightly above who, if they were there at 38, I honestly probably would take them, assuming that we've like addressed a need at 4. Like Trey Amos, I love personally. His comparison actually for me is Carlton Davis, funny enough. So I don't know. I think he's just one of those guys where it's like you look at the stickiness and man coverage and the ability of what he can do at the catch point. Like ridiculous pass breakup numbers. He just looks very, very comfortable when the ball comes to him. So I really, really like Amos. And Barron too. Like if either of those guys somehow got to 38, like I would probably pull the trigger there.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I like
Barron's a
that.
guy real quick. We were talking before about guys who could fall. Barron to me is one of those just because he's you need a plan for how you're going to use him at the next level. And
Yeah,
there's a world where there's just not the right team fit in the first. Like he could go top 15, he could drop to the second. Neither surprises me.
for sure. And he's probably the perfect complement to Gonzalez in the sense that he's kind of that like
Yeah.
he's more of the Devin Witherspoon, like get in the box,
Mhm.
tackle behind the line of scrimmage, use him as a blitzer. So I really like him as well. So there's a lot
And
of
he
good
would,
That would
corners.
be
and
that'd
he
be
would
a home
complement
run pick
Carlton
for them.
Davis too. That's your
Yep.
starting. You got three
That's
corners that all
probably the
complement each
best
other well.
cornerback trio in the league at that point. If you
Yeah, I think so.
Fingers
get him,
crossed.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know, right? All right, moving on to 69. Nice. Marcus Bowe, who is going to play guard in the NFL, played right tackle at Purdue while he was at Purdue. Someone did a cut up of him, just his knockdowns for the year.
Yeah.
3.5 minutes. Just his knockdowns. And he's got this one move where he flashes the hands. He like flashes his hands to get the guy to overcommit, and then he just smacks the guy's hands down, grabs him by the shoulders, and just throws him on the ground. And it worked 100 times. And it's just like now he won't have that much space as a left guard. Well, Patriots, I'm assuming, will want to move him to left guard. He won't have that much space to left guard, but the speed that he plays with his hands and the physicality and like just meanness that he plays with, I just absolutely love it. And so he's a guy that I don't know how well the fit is going to be. I don't know if he's the best guard out there or whatever, but I just love what he brings intangible wise. He's a guy that when I did like the first mock, the bye week mock, I'm looking at it and I fell in love with the kid, and I just could never find a spot to put him on to get him on a mock draft. And I'm like, I'm putting him on this damn mock draft because he's got to be one of my picks because he's just a fun guy to watch. You watch his film and it's just all over his film. The movement skills is a concern, and so that's why he's moving inside, not staying outside. But the hand speed, the toughness, the mentality he plays with, I love all that stuff. And so I love this kid at guard.
For sure. Yeah, it's always interesting to see these guys who played tackle in their career, and it's like, how are we actually projecting them to move to the interior? Like it's a big guess. And I think for me, a similar guy in that sense is like Wyatt Malone, where I really liked his tackle film, really short arms, so you're kind of like he's not going to stick out there, and it's essentially just a guess. It's like how is he going to move to the inside? What's he going to look like? And you're kind of just betting on these traits. So yeah, it's a really interesting conversation for a lot of these guys. And it seems like that's kind of a consistent theme in the tackle class is just a lot of guys who played on the outside in their college career who you're going to presume are going to move to the inside just based off length. So,
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of those guys who will be of interest for the Patriots. There's the Arizona guy as well,
yeah.
Savania,
Yeah.
Wyatt Milo. I like his tape as a tackle is really good. Like
Yeah.
if his arm, like I was surprised to find out he had short arms when I was done watching the tape, and I was like, like it's like I there's less of a difference here between like Milo and Campbell than I was expecting there to be. He's someone I like. This guy out of Purdue, I like. I think something in that mold is probably a good thing for the Patriots too, because if you can move around, like if you're someone who can be a quality guard and maybe an emergency tackle at the next level, that is very valuable. And if you draft a guy who's a tackle too, they're probably a very good athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of reminds me of like Donovan Jackson as well as a name that I personally really like. And also just seeing what he was able to do in the college football playoffs. It's like if you have anyone that's moving to a new position, let alone the most vulnerable position in arguably all of football, in the most like impactful stage in college football playoffs in the national championship, and he's playing at the level that he was able to play at that new position. It's like you want guys like that on your team who can step up in those big moments. So honestly, if the board doesn't fall our way, like and we go tackle at 4, he's a name where I would be fine doubling up and going literally left tackle, left guard, and worst case scenario, maybe he ends up at left tackle as well.
Yeah. No,
we did a live mock on here the other day where we traded back out of 4, like we got an offer, and then I think we took Josh Simmons middle of the first round, and then Donovan Jackson with our next pick or something like that. At least we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that could be, just set your left side of the line of scrimmage and forget it.
Yep.
For sure. And I think even in the event that you don't go tackle at 4, he's probably on that short list of guys that could be there at 38 that I would be fine with at 38. Like, I don't think it would be ridiculous to expect him to make that move out to left tackle and start there year 1. Obviously there are better options and it might not be perfect, but I think he's good enough where it would be a big upgrade over Vidarian Lowe.
Right. All right, let's continue this so we can get through it. Kyle Williams at 77. And this is the exact scenario you're talking about where, a wide receiver is there at 69 or at 77, depending on what's going on. That I love the idea of getting a guy like that. And Kyle Williams he's probably going to be a slot guy, but he brings so much speed to that slot position and really then creates a deep threat for you, even if he's playing inside. And that, to me, especially with Drake May, that, really gives you a boost, especially where you get all these underneath guys. You need someone with some damn speed out there, right? And you put a guy like that can get out there, and now it opens things up a little bit for the guys underneath, and I think that really helps.
Yeah, I love Kyle Williams. Like, he was one of those guys where I just turned on the tape and I was like, how is this guy not going earlier?
Yeah.
So I think for me, he's my 44th ranked player. I don't think I would take him at 38, but yeah, if he's there at 69, 77, I think that's a home run pick. Just one of those guys where he is always creating separation. Like, he is someone that just has it so naturally. Reminds me a little bit of Garrett Wilson in that sense, good speed, a bit of a thin frame. Just great route runner, can kill you deep, but can also create short yardage. So I really liked him. I think he's someone that the Patriots could be desperately lacking in that sense.
Well, I think they visited with Kyle Williams multiple times. I think he and Noel they brought in for top 30s. Yeah, which is notable. He seems like the kind of guy that Josh McDaniels would love. So I love this pick. I did think it was interesting that Evan Lazar had the Patriots taking him at 38 in a mock draft earlier today. That caught my eye. He comes in at 91 in the consensus boards. 38 would be pretty significant reach there. 77 is perfect.
But who knows? Who knows what NFL teams are thinking, right? You're talking about the media, and we just talked about guys that are in the top 25 that are dropping out of the first round, and so it could be a situation where a guy is overvalued, and all it takes is one team. All it takes is one team now. We're sitting there saying we have to get this guy,
Yep, 100%.
So, all right, at 106, I didn't make any trades here. 106, I went Vernon Broughton, D tackle from Texas. And so, he has some things to work on in the run game. But if you want a penetrating defensive tackle that can get after the passer and get up the field and make plays in the backfield, that's all over his film. And he's a ton of fun to watch. And so again, add to that front seven, give me a defensive tackle here that really can push the pocket and move the line of scrimmage back.
Yeah, I love the idea of adding a potential tackle, a defensive tackle on day 3. I think another guy that I've kind of floated around is Ainias Peebles, who kind of fits a similar profile as you're describing. Just someone who can kind of come in there among Barmore and Milton Williams, reap the benefits a little bit, but just an overall very disruptive and violent player who's kind of bringing the effort from play to play. So yeah, I love that. I think continue to add to that D-line.
Yeah. Yep.
Broughton, someone, just watching Texas games, I never got super deep on his film, but you watch Texas games, it's just he made a play, he made another play. You just hear the announcers calling his name all game long. And talented guy. I mean, in some ways, I like him more than Alfred Collins. I'm not as high on Collins as others are. I love Broughton, though, so I'm a fan of this one.
Well, there you go. All right, my fifth round pick at 144. I'm gonna pull up Patty here, who says he wants Drew Kendall, and I agree, Patty. At 144, we're taking Drew Kendall, center from Boston College. Here's the thing, right? Here's the big thing with me, and Bo took a little bit some center snaps too at one of the All-Star games, I believe. But you're getting a true center, a guy that's just a center, and I think that's great. They need that. They need depth at the center position. everyone's talking about the connection with Vrabel and Bill O'Brien. Doug Marrone has a connection to this kid as well. I think it makes a ton of sense. Take Kendall here. I know Ozzie Trapillo. I'm not as high. I'm not super high on Ozzie Trapillo. I think 38 is way too early. And I think really he should be going, I think Ozzie at this spot, I'd be okay with. Ozzie where he's going to go in the actual draft. No, thank you. So, I'm happy about this, about the Drew Kendall pick here.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of the perfect setup just based on our roster construction is you have the presumptive starter in Bradbury who, might be at the back half of his career, but I think he has a lot to teach a young guy who's coming in. So, and then obviously just having some competition there, Cole Strange, and sort that all out. But yeah, I think it's a great spot for a rookie to come in, potentially sit year one, maybe step in for injury and definitely start year two. But I like it.
Yeah, Kendall's the guy we've talked about a lot on here. They met with him doing all the local stuff with Boston College. His dad played against Mike Vrabel both in college and in the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah. So if there's any value in that connection of guys Mike Vrabel knows, that could be here. But Seth McLaughlin's also another name, and especially with his injury, can sit a year and come in the next year. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think we've each taken both of those guys at some point, throughout this process.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I feel like that feels like a sure thing that we're going to end up with one of these centers on day 3.
It kind of feels like it, doesn't it? So, all right, my second 5th round pick, the Joe Milton pick, I went with Jarquez Hunter, running back from Auburn. Patriots have been linked, or not linked, but have said multiple times they want a speed back. Vrabel said it. Bob Kraft said it. They want a speed back. Jarquez Hunter fits that bill. 4.44 40, 10-foot broad jump. I think he averaged like six yards a carry in college. Never really a bell cow at Auburn in college, but I think that he showed a ton. He showed really good burst and good vision as a running back in there. And I think he's got a little bit of work to do with his receiving game, but he can spell these guys a little bit and give a little juice to the running back core.
For sure, and I feel like that's kind of the one pick that everyone's expecting on day 3 is that kind of smaller running back, and I think it's a good year to have that need. There are a lot of guys that fit that profile, and even if Antonio Gibson's kind of still in the mix, just to have someone who can contribute and just add another element and a little bit of juice that you don't necessarily have now. So I like it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I actually traded back in the 7th round because I needed a third 7th round pick because I had to get 2 guys on the list. I think the Patriots are taking a kicker for sure. So I needed to get a kicker on there. You can throw on Borregales if you'd like. I took Ryan Fitzgerald from Florida State. I think he's the best out of the kickers. Just my personal opinion. It doesn't mean anything, but when you hit a 59-yarder in Ireland and do the Conor McGregor dance afterwards, I kind of have to take it in the 7th round. But nevertheless, so I have Fitzgerald. But if they like someone better, fine. But I feel like the writing is on the wall that they're going to take a kicker in this draft, if not as like a high priority free agent. So, anyways, Fitzgerald's the guy I went with. But at 238, I went with Sean Dolak, who is a linebacker from Buffalo. He's a guy that just he moves, man. 4.61 40, a 6.9 3 cone drill, which is wild for a linebacker. 6'1", 221. And you're thinking 6'1", 221. That guy's he's a safety, not a linebacker. Robert Spillane, 6'1", 224. So he's like the same size as Robert Spillane. He brings the absolute wood when he hits guys. He's a lot of fun to watch on film. Brian Baldinger did a breakdown of him, and I'm like, all right, if Baldy's talking about him, and the film was good, I'm like, I'm in.
I didn't expect this name to come up on this podcast at all. I found him back in December. So I went on PFF's college stats, and I just went to zone coverage grades for linebackers and just sorted that to see who was up there. And you've got Jay Higgins from Iowa. You've got Jeffrey Bossa from Oregon. But this guy's up there. He's like a 6th-year walk-on.
Yeah.
Buffalo, too. Who earned his way into this role. So really cool story.
Awesome story.
This is sick. Yeah. I didn't expect him to come back around. So I'm all in.
So, all right. So my last guy here, last pick, Thomas Perry, offensive lineman from Middlebury, a D3 school in Vermont. He's got good size, and he was the only Division III prospect invited to the East-West Shrine Bowl. He earned the nickname from the writers that were there, Thomas the Tank, because he just like bullies people. And the guy's a D3 athlete. So he coming into this against guys that are playing against better competition, that are bigger than him, that are stronger than him, that are faster than him, than everything else. And he's just out there bullying them throughout all of the practices. And you see some of the film. There was one film which I didn't post at the mock draft, but like he was playing left guard, and he pulls and he runs into the ass of his right guard, who gets blown back. And he's like, what the hell is this? And then he keeps going, and he just takes the defensive end and just throws him on the ground, and then turns upfield and just buries a linebacker. And you're just like, this guy's awesome, dude. Like, it's just so, he's a guy that I don't know if he's going to get drafted or not, but man, he's a ton of fun to watch. And so I'm all in on Thomas Perry.
The first name I didn't know, so
there you go.
You
Look at that.
me. Impressive.
So yeah, I'm telling you, man, go search him on like Twitter or whatever, and watch some of the tape. It's fun. And the one-on-ones, like the one-on-ones are legit. Like East-West Shrine Bowl, he's going against guys from Georgia. He's going against guys from like big schools, and he's just holding his own and winning the majority of the reps. And so I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, I like that.
So
that's and I know maybe they don't draft him, but some of these names coming back as UDFAs at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That'll be now that this guy's on my radar. I'm gonna notice whenever he signs somewhere and be like,
exactly.
see if he makes the roster.
That's right.
Also, totally completely unrelated to this, but I just had this pop up on my Twitter feed, and it has a minor Patriots connection to it. One of the like schedule leaking accounts has a college football schedule for 2026. The opener in 2026 is going to be North Carolina versus TCU in Ireland, in Dublin.
Wow.
That game.
Okay.
So
awesome.
if you're looking to plan a trip abroad and you want to see Bill Belichick coaching a college football game in Ireland against TCU, you can do that.
I love it.
It's going to be electric.
Big fan of that.
All right. That and a Guinness.
I'll take it. I will take it.
Have you been to Ireland?
I have not.
No, I haven't either. My sister did a whole semester abroad in Ireland, but I never visited her.
Yeah, I went like 2 years ago to visit a friend who was abroad there for a semester. Really fun place.
Yeah.
So it would be a great atmosphere for football.
Yeah. Everyone's been to. It's awesome.
Well, and they did the BC Florida State. Was that BC Florida State? No, BC.
No, BC.
What was that game?
Was it Notre Dame?
Game like Notre Dame, Penn State, maybe. Something that. I think Notre Dame was.
Notre Dame played Florida State there this year, and
that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not Florida State. No. That's not true. Florida State played Georgia Tech there this year, I think it was, and lost.
That's the game I'm thinking of. That was a very fun game. It was an electric.
Yeah, that was the game. Ryan Fitzgerald. That's what I was talking about. Ryan Fitzgerald hit the 59-yard field goal at the end of the first half and did the Conor McGregor walk.
I knew that the game involved like gold helmets and a top ranked
I'm thinking,
losing.
I'm like Notre Dame played Florida State. I'm like, wait a second. I was at the Notre Dame Florida State game in Notre Dame. You dummy.
Yes.
So like, yes. So that was but nevertheless. All right, Matt. Let's do your ad read, then we'll do a maybe do a quick
mock.
Quick live mock.
Yeah. All right. I'm here to talk to you guys about Game Time, which perfect time for this. Celtics in the playoffs. They won Game 1 against Orlando. We got another one coming up Wednesday night, so you could make this a real fun week. See the Celtics at home Wednesday. You got the NFL draft Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a great way to bring it all together. Who doesn't love going to games like this? And Game Time is going to make it faster and easier for you to get these hard-to-get playoff seats. You go on the Game Time app. You can find the game you want to go to. If this is the Celtics Magic game, or if you're trying to see something else, you're going to hit Game Time picks. You're going to hit all-in pricing right when you get in there. What that's going to do is it's going to filter out all the tickets you were never going to consider anyway. It's going to get rid of the clutter. It's going to show you the best value seats in all the sections around the arena. And then the all-in pricing, the price you see is the price you're going to pay. That's going to include all your fees and everything. So you don't have to worry about, it says it's $100 and you're paying $200 for it once everything's added on. Don't have to deal with any of that. Plus, you can hit seat view and you're going to see exactly that view that you're going to get when you get there, so you know what you're getting yourself into. And you can use last minute tickets. They have you could save up to 60% off by buying last minute for sports. They have it for concerts too. They got it for comedy shows. You can get it for theater. So it's not just the Celtics. They have zone deals and the lowest price guarantee, or they're going to credit you with 110% of the difference. I use Game Time all the time. It's my go-to ticketing app, so I highly recommend it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let me get this mock draft up for us. And we're using the PFF one, which I feel like at this point, what do you call it? It always ends up being a little bit weird. They have their own board, but I think it's the same out there.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go.
So let's keep the randomness low, please.
Yeah. We turned the randomness up a little bit too high.
Make sure you did 7. All right, yes. Good. Just making sure.
So we're in a good spot here.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get this kicked off. We'll see how the first 3 go and go from there. Ward, Hunter, Carter. So we did talk this through before.
Yes.
We think Will Campbell would be the pick with the 3 of us if this were real. I think the only other name we didn't talk about that we should is Ashton Genty. This seems to have picked up steam like today as a potential thing. Either, I don't know about the Patriots, but somebody taking him high or somebody trading up for him. Danny, where do you land on Genty?
Yeah, I'm pretty one side of the spectrum here. I spoke about it earlier today on a different podcast, but I'm completely against it. I'm not against taking a running back high in general. I just think you have to be practical about where you're at as a team and assess what your roster truly is. And so for a team, for example, like the Cowboys, when they took Ezekiel Elliott, if you have Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick and Zach Martin as your offensive line and you don't have that many holes, go for it. But if you're the New York Giants or the New England Patriots and you have to build that offensive line and you have other things to worry about and you're coming off a 4-win season, I'm just totally against it personally.
Yeah, I think that's our consensus too. Like if it were you add in the fact that you're already paying a lot of money for Ramondre Stevenson and it's a good running back class too. And like if it were, if it were another world, then maybe you are thinking about this pick if you're New England and things look different. But with this class, I just really
it's also just like if you add Genty, of course your offense is going to improve. But if you're at a point where your offensive line is getting destroyed and Will Campbell or whoever it may be is having success elsewhere, like think about the discourse there.
And I also think the biggest thing, the real biggest thing for me is that how much better does your team become if you add Ashton Genty? You already have 2 NFL caliber running backs. Again, maybe Genty is the guy. Maybe Genty's going to be awesome. He's going to be a top 10 running back and everything else. Sure, that's fine. I got no problem with that. You already have 2 NFL caliber running backs on your roster. You don't have an NFL caliber left tackle. You don't have an NFL caliber left guard. You don't have an NFL caliber wide receiver number 1. You don't have NFL caliber guys on your roster. You're going to draft a guy at a position that's not as important where you already have 2 NFL caliber guys. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I think also like all of these guys who have kind of gone in this range in the past, they have panned out, but it hasn't really led to wins. Like you look at, Saquon Barkley, obviously, who I mentioned. Bijan Robinson has probably lived up to most people's expectation, and it's resulted in 2 seasons of being 7-9 and a season of being 8-9, and it hasn't really improved their output. And if they were given the opportunity, they would probably kill to have Jalen Carter or Christian Gonzalez right now. And even Christian McCaffrey too on Carolina. It was like he was arguably the best running back in the league, but what did it really do for a team that wasn't ready to have him there? So it's like a lot of these guys, they move teams, they go to the team with the offensive line already built with everything in place who can compete now, and that's where they succeed. So it's like in 2026 and 2027, sure, if you want to make this flashy running back move, go for it. Just we have bigger fish to fry, and it's tough because it's a fan pick, right? Like if I didn't do research on the draft and I didn't care about the draft, I would probably want Ashton Genty just because of a pure entertainment aspect. So,
and he'll sell jerseys. How many 66 Campbell jerseys are going to sell versus whatever number Ashton Genty is going to end up wearing? Yeah, and also we do mention the point in there about having guys at the position already. I will say that would not stop me from taking Mason Graham because one, Barmore's health, but even if Barmore is perfectly healthy, you just can't have too many good defensive linemen. You're always going to have two on the field, and you're going to rotate them.
Not the case with running back.
Yeah. You'll have a rotation, but like if you're taking Genty, you're probably imagining him touching the ball 30 times a game.
Right. Yeah. Right. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And it's just that running backs get taken early in the draft, and it's just not. Look, Derrick Henry's a great example. Derrick Henry, for Mike Vrabel, carried the Titans to the playoffs multiple times. That's true. That's 100% true. However, he was taken in the second round. They didn't take him at number 4 overall. They drafted other needs. So they had NFL caliber players at positions. Their offensive line was pretty good. Maybe not the best, but pretty good. And at least you had NFL caliber players on it. And, you can't take a running back without having NFL caliber players on your offensive line.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Like Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold is a lot different than the Darian Lowe and Cole Strange potentially being 100% behind. So
or Layden Robinson.
Exactly. So it's unfortunate because no matter where Genty goes, he's going to be incredible. Like I have expectation that he'll probably be the best running back in the league in a couple of years. So there's no good circumstance because no matter what, people are always going to come back and say, "Oh, well, we should have picked Genty." So it's hard to quantify because it's about the win output for me.
Yeah.
So Campbell the pick here
Yep.
at 4, and let's see how the board falls to 38. TJ Sanders at 37. That's the guy I know you like. Yeah, Connerly goes. James Pierce goes.
There's your guy Troy Amos.
Yeah.
Luther Burden to the Eagles. That would be a very interesting fit.
That's fun.
But yeah, all right. So this is how the board looks at 38. Trey Amos, very interesting. You talked about him before. Jaden Higgins, we talked about, is on here. In Savon Revel, any of these other names calling out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going with one of those receivers or Amos, or maybe even doubling up with Donovan Jackson, like we spoke about before. Probably down to those 3, I would say.
I would agree. Matt, you want to eliminate one?
Let's see. Well, we haven't in one of these monks. I don't think we've done the corner pick this high and seen how that falls. And Amos is a guy I don't think we've taken on here at all. I think that gets very interesting here and what that does for you.
I think that's a great idea. We've taken Jaden Higgins. I think Jaden Higgins would be a slam dunk pick at 38. I love that pick. But I like the idea of taking Donovan Jackson as well and kind of like shoring up the left side of your offensive line immediately. That sounds great to me. But I do look at it and think that taking a corner, which again is a long-term need, is it a little bit of a reach at 38? Yeah, but I don't care. Like, I almost wonder too. Can you just see what the trade is like? I don't know if we want to get into this whole trade thing, but just out of curiosity, where are the Falcons? The Falcons are the next team. Where are they picking? Back
8 spots.
Would you 8 spots isn't bad because
probably,
to me,
yeah.
All I'm thinking, I like Amos, I like Hairston, and I like Revel. And if you move back 8 spots, what's the probability that one of those 3 guys is going to be available there?
Yeah, or alternatively, even Higgins or Donovan Jackson. Like, it seems like one of these guys is probably going to get there, or you hope.
Yeah. So it's weird with the Falcons because they have a big gap in picks here between 46 and 118.
So what if
let's see with Cincinnati, 49 and 81 for 38. Do we like that?
I would do that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically a 50-50. Let's see if it goes.
It does. All right, let's do it.
So we're moving back 11 spots. All right, let's see how this board looks here. Benjamin Morrison. Oh, Jaden Higgins still here.
Yeah, I feel like Higgins is probably the
Yeah, then Higgins is the pick, I think.
Yeah. Would
All
you?
those corners went.
Yeah.
All those corners went. Ratledge is there still, but I think you
Oh,
could get him at 69
look at-
potentially.
The two picks before us here are Donovan Jackson and Sean Revel.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're trading back with Atlanta instead, we maybe can grab one of those, but not how the board falls here. You think Higgins is the pick?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Jaden Higgins at 49.
Well, you took the wrong guy.
Did I really? I
Took
clicked the wrong
Landon Jackson.
thing.
Yep.
That's right. Okay. We'll just pretend that says
We'll
Jaden
pretend
Higgins.
it was Jaden Higgins.
Yeah.
Kevin Winston's still on the board. That's an interesting guy for me, man. I really like Kevin Winston. More of a box safety than he is a free safety, but he just, man, he's such a freaking hard hitter. Like I'm a fan of him.
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Dylan Sampson they met with. Jalen, where are you on Jalen Royals? He has some real fans in the draft community.
Yeah, I don't dislike him. I just wasn't as impressed. Like he wasn't someone who necessarily like popped for me where I like kept coming back to watch him and talk about him. I don't know. I just don't trust like the nuance of his game as much. Like I think he's a little bit more of a gadget guy. And then I kind of got to the Senior Bowl and I was like hoping that he was going to impress me a little bit more up close, and I just didn't get that sense. So I'm not out on him. He's not really one of the guys that's stuck out to me, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, because that Boise State tape for him, for me, is one game where like I thought for most of the game he wasn't super impressive, but then he had like 3 touchdowns. Like it's all of his plays are big game changing plays, and then outside of those, it didn't feel like he was making much of an impact. I was just like, I don't really know how to evaluate how this translates.
Yeah. So especially like with this board, like I feel like it would be a bit of a travesty to pass up on Trey Harris or Kyle Williams if you did go the wide receiver route. But honestly, I would probably take Tate Ratledge in this scenario.
Yeah, that was the name I was looking at.
I think that's the best move here.
Yeah. Andrew Makuba is a guy we also like on here. Well, I would consider at the spot. Maybe wait and see if he's here later. Are you a fan of his?
Yeah, I like him. Although like Winston and Makuba kind of in the same range. Very different players, I guess. Like Makuba's a little bit thinner, a little bit rangier, more of your like traditional center fielder, and kind of like what Pat said, Winston's more of that box physical guy. So yeah, both I like them. Just kind of depends on what your flavor is.
Phil Perry, not a Makuba fan. Phil Perry.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah. So, but that's neither here nor there. But that's and
I know we like Tate Ratledge here. I'll just throw out Mason Taylor. And
I didn't see that he got.
Yeah.
Honestly,
they're very low on him here.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if Mason Taylor gets to 69 or Ratledge, like those are 2 great picks for me.
Yeah, I'd be cool with either of those guys. Daniel, since you're the guest, why don't you choose Mason Taylor or Tate Ratledge, and let's see if the other one drops.
Yeah, I'd probably go Mason Taylor here.
All right,
let's do it.
Let's see if I can click the right one this time.
There it is.
All right, we dropped down to 77. Man, this PFF board's crazy because we're going to get both. Tate Ratledge is still here.
I love it. 77, Tate Ratledge. Put it on the board.
Next time the NFL mock draft database simulator, just because it goes based off like the numbers of like where the other mocks in the public are. So it's like kind of consensus. Which is nice to see. Yeah.
We'll have to do that one next time then. Ratledge at 77. Next year.
I was going to say next year.
2 days.
2
days. 3 days till the draft.
Oh yeah, because we have 81 as well. It's right, dude.
Yeah,
I like that.
Right, so, and Jalen Knowles on the board here.
I mean, yeah, I feel like those guys would be long gone. Like Williams, Knoll. I would have taken Knoll for sure at 69. Even. I mean, can you imagine that if we take Higgins at 38 and just pair him up? I mean, it's a little bit overkill.
Again.
You're trading back, getting Higgins, and then also getting Knoll, which is wild.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a little bit overkill in the sense that like you have so many guys there. I can't really see them double dipping on receiver, but I mean it would be really cool to see.
Well, there's a report Adam Schefter said that Kendrick Bourne's a guy that could possibly be on the move draft day, and if that's the case, then it makes sense that you could be drafting multiple guys because now you get a little bit.
Was it Bourne or was it Booty?
Yeah.
I thought it was Bourne. Maybe he said Booty.
I think it was Booty. But...
okay.
Got the KBs mixed up.
I did. My bad.
Yeah. I honestly all 5 of the guys right here I like if we don't want to go wide receiver here, partially because we took one and also partially because it might be a little unrealistic.
Yeah.
Makuba, Harvey, Oladejo. I like Damian Martinez is fun. I don't like Chris Paul that much personally.
Interesting. That's honestly someone that I do like, but I think he's scheme dependent in the sense that he's like from just like a size measurable standpoint. I think he's low percentiles there, so you're kind of gonna have to have a specific role for him. But yeah. So I mean Jonah. I like to call him Jonah from Arizona. It's easier on the tongue, but Jared Wilson too.
I was gonna say that might be the pick. I mean, you drafted a left tackle, you drafted a left guard, now you draft a center, and you look at your offensive line and you say, all right, we're good. Like we're set at offensive line.
Then this you've got tight end, wide receiver, left tackle, left guard, center, all in the top 100. I mean, I think that is an ideal outcome here.
I like that quite a bit.
But if you like other players more,
I mean, like in theory, I would obviously have taken Noel. I just feel like at this point, it's probably a little bit unrealistic to take some of those guys. But
all right, let's take Wilson then, and let's move on to pick. Like, are we
104,
104, 106?
Yeah. All right.
Jesus Christ! Come on. Here. The heck is PFF doing? Dude?
Harold Fannin. Where are you on Fannin? Another divisive guy.
And honestly, he's been one of the most interesting prospects for me because I feel like coming out when not a lot of people had information on him, it was just you kind of saw the production there at Bowling Green and you didn't know what to expect. And he fell off a little bit for me. Like just seeing him in person, he wasn't nearly as big or athletic as you would have liked him to be, even at the combine. Like he was a good tester, don't get me wrong, but I think for the style of play that he has, you were expecting like off the charts testing there. And he just didn't look as athletic as you would like him. I still think he's a flyer where if you're at 106, and I guess we did take Mason Taylor, so it's out of the question here. But yeah, if you're sitting there on day 3 and he gets to you, I'm probably taking him. But yeah, he's not someone that like I'm going out of my way to go get, I would say.
Yeah, because it's the production's crazy and like his It's funny because his game against Penn State, he looks really athletic at points, and you see the testing and it's good, but it's not great. And it's like stuck in this kind of purgatory of just not quite knowing how high that ceiling really is.
Yeah, he's a little clunkier and like less coordinated than you would have expected him to be. But I would say that the guy that people I think were expecting him to be in this process was actually like Elijah Arroyo, who was really, really fluid, really athletic up close, just a natural savvy route runner. So he's someone that I like who could potentially be there at 69.
You know who I like at this spot is and you just passed him, is Danny Stutzman.
Oh, Oklahoma guy?
Yeah. I think they want more linebackers. And I'm a fan of him.
What about Devin Neal? Is he still on the board? That's my guy.
I don't
Anyway,
I don't remember where they have him.
You click over to running back.
He could be like really late.
Who the heck knows?
No, I think they have him in this range. Yeah, he's off. If you scroll up, we might be able to see who took him. Vikings 97 has him.
At least that's a great fit. That would be fun to watch.
I feel like this is a spot where we want to go defense.
Yeah.
Just with how we've handled everything else. Any defenders standing out to you, Daniel?
Oladejo is very interesting. Like he's someone from a leadership standpoint that like everyone loves. Like he's, at the Senior Bowl, they were saying like he's the guy that's going to bring it every single day. And he's new to the position. I think he was like a former linebacker and kind of just started playing edge, but has that prototypical athletic, really long build. So, I wasn't sold necessarily on him as a product right now, but it's similar to Walker. Like, I don't know what he's going to become. Less confidence and conviction there on what he's going to become. But at this point at 106, like that's someone that you wouldn't mind betting on their tools and work ethic.
I'm down with that. I'm down with Oladejo. I like him. Gelati I like too, but I'm down with that. Or even Jacob Harris we're not taking because we took a corner already. But I like Jacob Harris as well, especially if you're looking for a slot corner.
Well, no, we didn't. We went Jaden Higgins. We didn't do corner. So,
all right, we didn't take a corner. That's right. So Jacob Harris, I think I would put on the list as well. But either one of those guys, I think would be fine with me.
Yeah, I do I think you got to go pass rush here.
No, let's do it.
That's just the way I lean at this point. So we'll take the UCLA kid. A couple more picks in this one, round 5. Good
Come
Lord.
on. What are we doing with Kyle Williams? What the hell's going on, dude?
Yeah, that's why you have to use the consensus board.
Yeah.
I
think Stutzman.
Ty Robinson's, I like it.
He tested well.
Yeah, we've talked about Ty Robinson a few times on here.
He's a freak where you like look at him even from afar on tape, and it's like just really long arms, like big upper half, crazy tester. Just
no, that's the pick. Ty Robinson's the pick. Yeah. Like, don't overthink it. Just take Ty Robinson. Like I freaking love that.
I like betting on an athlete like this here. Any objection, Daniel?
No, I love Ty Robinson.
We'll do that 144.
Kyle 171. Hey, he's gone. Someone took him.
Who finally took Kyle Williams? Oh my God, the Chargers at 158.
Wow,
that's outrageous.
Unfair. Yeah.
That would be he and Ladd. There would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I could see him going in the top 50. Honestly, we'll see.
Yeah, just got to be with wide receivers too. Once you get past first tier or two, it becomes very much scheme fit, eye of the beholder. Like you never know. I mean, we got what do you call it? JJ Arcega-Whiteside went before DK Metcalf back in the days when I always remember. Or who was the speed? Oh, Andy Isabella too.
Yeah, a lot of guys. Or even last year, like Pearsall going 32 before Ladd. Just like a lot of stuff you don't expect. But I think there's gonna be a big run in that kind of early second, mid-second range.
Yeah, I agree. Which
right,
the Pats might have to grab someone at 30.
What are we thinking here?
Let's see.
Dylan Fairchild, another guard.
I like Dylan Fairchild a lot, or ETN.
They did do a visit with ETN.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking about him earlier today. Honestly, I think he's probably the most likely pick at running back if I had to guess.
So let's do it. Let's do ETN.
That works for me.
Yeah,
we've taken him in that spot before.
I think around this spot. I don't know if it's this exact one, but certainly around there.
Yeah. All right. 220.
2 picks left.
All right. Now we're getting real deep. See if there's any names.
Yeah.
Mel Mondon is someone I like.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever drafted him on here. You talk about him every time he comes up, and I don't think we've ever actually taken him.
Bilal Kone they met with. Jalen Travis is a freak big dude. Malachi Moore from Alabama might be interesting. Shamar James, to me, was someone who I really liked the profile, and then I looked at the actual testing and how he looked in the drills and all that stuff. And
doesn't match.
I was just like, it didn't. I felt this way about a lot of linebackers this year. A lot of the undersized guys underwhelmed me because I didn't think they were fast enough to make up for the lack of size and played at the second level. Shamar James kind of fell into that. Higgins, even Jeffrey Bossa. I like a lot of Bossa.
I like Bossa a lot. Yeah.
I think there's some good stuff there, but I was just I wasn't sold on him where he was being projected at the point. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Any of these real deep names, ones that you like?
Honestly, not. None of them are really catching my eye. Honestly, there you go. Oh, I guess we already got
we already got a center.
Jackson Slater.
Yeah, that could be a play.
Like him.
Any of the other Colorado wide receivers interesting?
I didn't do too much work on them, to be honest. I think I capped out my receivers at 31 maybe, and they were the next man up, but I didn't end up doing them.
I think we've talked about Wester on here. I think we actually took him in one of our mocks.
Yeah, a couple people in the chat really like Wester. I think.
Yeah,
at least historically they have.
Yeah, I could even.
Someone's asking about Isaiah Nayer. I don't even know who Isaiah Nayer is.
For the name,
but
that's all I got on him.
No idea.
Ricky White's being quarterback pick if they're gonna try to develop a backup. Curtis Rourke is someone that I honestly like at this value. He's one of the more natural quarterbacks in this class, I would say. But just a little bit older and had an injury, so he's probably gonna go pretty late in the draft. But pure thrower,
let's do it. I don't think we've ever taken a quarterback in our live mock, so let's do it.
Yeah, that works. I liked Rourke. He had some good traits. I thought just watching Indiana games, watching the Big Ten.
He's smart. He kind of reminds you a little bit of an Aiden O'Connell type, just pure mechanics, decent arm, decently accurate, smart, gets the ball out.
Yeah. I will say there was something, it might have been that Vrabel said or that somebody said the other day that made me think they're not going to draft a quarterback. It might have been one of the articles, but like it was something about feeling like they wanted they said they didn't have enough reps for Joe Milton. And in my head, I was like, if they don't have enough reps for Joe Milton, that probably means they don't want a young quarterback in here. They probably want Drake May getting as many reps as possible, and the other guys are just going to be happy to be there.
Yeah, like personally, I don't really see the need to draft a quarterback in real life. Like, I mean, you have Josh Dobbs there, who's an incredible backup for most teams. Like, do you really need to develop one? Like, you can kind of just sign who you want to sign from year to year, and maybe down the line, you really do like a guy, and at that point, in a couple
but
years
I will say though, I'm okay with him being on the practice squad and drafting him in, this late. I mean, you're in the 7th round.
Yeah.
These guys are basically UDFAs that you are like, all right, I really want this guy on my team, and so I'm going to draft him instead of signing him after the draft. And so if they like him and they think, we can throw him on the practice squad for a few years, I think that makes a lot of sense to do if that's what they want to do. And so, kind of go from there.
For sure. Yeah. It's one of those things I'm kind of just like indifferent about. Like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
Did you watch any Ismail Mondon?
Yeah, he's good. He can fly. I mean, I liked him.
Well, let's do it. We didn't take Stutzman earlier at linebacker. We haven't taken a linebacker. Let's do it.
Mondon, what I've said about him on here is that he's the guy when you watch Georgia tape, when you're watching other players, you keep just accidentally watching Mondon because of the way he flies around and gets to the football.
Yeah, he's very fast.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to remake it now with Higgins.
I'll do a quick Photoshop job.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, you swap in Higgins. That's a pretty. That's draft.
You talk about Campbell, Higgins, Taylor, Ratledge, and Wilson with Oladejo. Man. A lot of Georgia Bulldogs. A lot of Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I didn't even realize. Yeah.
But, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind taking a guard, a guard and a center that played together as well. I think that makes a ton of sense too, and the other guys we'll see what happens with those two guys. But 2 LSU guys and 4 Georgia guys. We're going all SEC. That's what happened. See, that's what happened, Matt, is you went to go click Jaden Higgins, and your mouse accidentally went to SEC instead with Anna Jackson in Arkansas. That's all that happened.
5 consecutive SEC to start. That's crazy. Put that on Twitter after this so people can see, and I'll correct it before putting it up there because people will be very quick to roast me, I'm sure.
Yep. So, all right, listen, this has been a ton of fun, man. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. Our last show before the draft. We really appreciate it. For those of you, the listeners out there, if you're not following Daniel, first of all, if you're not following Daniel, I don't know what the hell you're doing. This guy was all in on Drake May last year, ate all the hate, all of it, ate all the hate. Yep, doesn't matter. And he was 100% right. Had Drake May as his number 1 overall guy, stuck to his guns all off season when everyone was questioning him and saying he wasn't good enough. And they were throwing shade at May and saying, no, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. Daniel stuck with it the whole time, and turns out he was 100% right. And so good on you, Daniel. And if you're not following him, get on there because he's a great follow on the old X. Doesn't play full off the tongue as much as Twitter does, but
thank you. I really appreciate that. It was fun being on.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. We appreciate it. And for those of you listeners out there, we are not doing a live mock draft this year. Unfortunately, my daughter's birthday falls on the draft, and so we have plans that night. We are going to do a live show after the draft has ended, so probably like 11:30 or so. We'll be doing a live draft Thursday night, and then we'll be on Friday night again, and then we'll be on Sunday night as well, breaking down the whole draft. So tons of draft coverage coming up for you this weekend, just not our 5-hour live mock that we usually do on Thursday. So thanks to everyone for coming through. Daniel, you have your top 100 on the board as well, so go over there and check out that top 100. It's really nice. I love the fact that you have all of like the way it's presented, because you have all the obviously all the names, but then the team logos next to the name, so you can kind of place who's who. it's interesting. You're looking for a guy, and it's like I'm just looking for. I was looking for Benjamin Morrison earlier on your top 100, and I'm just looking for the Notre Dame. I'm not looking for anything else. I don't have to look at every play, and I'm like, oh, there he is, and so it's easy to find, and so it's definitely good. So get on there and follow Daniel and go from there. There's a lot of podcast stuff going on this week, so make sure you're listening to all his pod. Listen to ours first. Here you are, listen to ours first, but now you can go listen to all the other ones afterwards. So that's all we got, Daniel.
Where can they find you, by the way?
Thank you, guys. Just my handle, Scouted NFL. You can follow me there, or you can follow my personal account, which you can, find directly through that. But yeah, that's basically it. Or my website, scoutednfl.com.
I love it. And it's Scouted, but no E, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just turned into Scout D, which I don't mind. So it's just pick your poison. Whatever you want to call me is good with me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. We really appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun. And everyone out there, enjoy the last few days before the draft. We'll see what finally happens. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Be good to each other and go Pats.